is the review part 2, The Revenge of the Aiden. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is the Aiden and Deviant Show, starring Brother Aiden and Sister Deviant Outcast.
Hello.
We've given everybody time to mentally recuperate since the last time that we covered these guys. So I think that we're ready to go at this point as far as covering their silly content yet again. Let's not dally and let's get into it.
Yes. Finding the Pharaoh of the Exodus. So it's a Pharaoh we're looking for this time. And
right.
I can happily say that I barely remember the last part of this. And I try to remember it, but every time my brain says no.
You're doing your best. No, I get that 150%. I've kind of suppressed it mentally as well, but I'm hoping that I know just enough that we'll be who am I kidding? Of course I do. It's the freaking Proverbs, guys. It's not like it really requires a lot of effort at the end of the day to refute what they have to say.
That's kind of what the conclusion I came to the last time we were doing this, or prior to that.
What I want to know is who is Moipt, because that's what I see on the top of their screen there. If you look between their
yeah,
who's Moipt?
Moipt.
Is that the Pharaoh that we're looking for? Pharaoh Moipt?
Could be. I mean,
sounds more legit than Imhotep 3, I guess.
It does, because it actually sounds like it could potentially be an Egyptian name, and also it's, at least we don't know that there was no Pharaoh with that name.
That's true.
And I am trying so hard to get this freaking screen of mine to, there we go. Why does it want me to be all like so? There. What? There we go.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Awesome. And let's play.
All right, let's do it.
Yes. He is very broad-legged, this Pharaoh. He's really showing off his
yeah, he's letting it all hang out, you know. He's not a brick house, and yet he looks mighty, and that he does in fact let it all hang out. So
yes, I mean, you know, there is something to be said about the third leg, and here we see the foot of it.
I love it so much because it's so clearly our AI generated. Like it doesn't know that that's not where a foot is supposed to go. So it's like, yeah, foot. And they just use like, yeah, good enough. It's got the guy with the hat in it. So yeah, we got to use the thing because you got the funny little pokey beard thingy.
I'm not really sure about this completely trashed temple they're in, but
yeah, I don't know why that's the case. This guy's like come to this place, and this like statue is perfectly pristine. It looks like it was like literally polished just before this picture was taken.
Yeah,
and it's surrounded by these like crumbling ruins. I guess they spend all the money upkeeping that third foot, you know, like that third foot adds a lot of expense. They couldn't keep the building properly funded.
They've done nothing but polishing it.
Sire, don't you think that the building needs a bit of maintenance? Nonsense! Go back to polishing the leg! Such a stupid non-issue.
Yes.
Full disclosure, we were doing this exact thing right before the show, too. We were going through papyri, and we were just like, oh, that's a silly little guy right there. What do you think about that little guy? Just so freaking... Such a non sequitur. It doesn't mean anything whatsoever, but I love it so much. That's what life's all about.
If you stay to the end, you are going to see which guy we are talking about in the papyrus.
That's right.
So that's
we'll
a cliffhanger.
We'll find out all about who Moept really is.
Hi, Asso in the chat.
Yes,
Mr.
hello,
Daddy. Okay, let's get back
to it. Let's get back to it. Freaking ridiculous. I can't stop looking at the leg.
I know.
I didn't even notice until you pointed it out, but then now it's nothing I can. Thank you.
I know it's right there. You're very, very welcome.
Lice, but they could not. Note that in the plague of lice, the powers of the magicians lose their efficacy. They even tried to replicate the plague, but in the end, they could not. Continuing, the Ipuwer papyrus describes, surely gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire. The entire royal house is without its servants and slaves. It had barley and wheat. The birds and fish had fine linen and good copper and oils. The inhabitants of the marshes have protections. People feed on the grass dragged by the water for the birds. No grain or grass can be found. Barley appeared on all the roads. Surely what could be seen yesterday has disappeared. The land is abandoned due to barrenness, and likewise the cutting of linen.
Hold on, pause.
Yeah, I need to say something very important. The Ipuwer papyrus describes it's produced, or it was dated to the 19th dynasty, which is around 1250 BCE. But the text is what's called an admonition text. That is kind of a moral, a telling about morality and ethics and the duties of the pharaoh, because the Egyptians view the one of the pharaoh's main tasks, main whatever it's called, was to uphold the concept of ma'at, and it's referencing the end of the Old Kingdom and the beginning of the first intermediate period, which would be around 2200 BCE or thereabout. So that's pretty important, I would say.
What's the first long-term interruption to Egyptian society that they really experience over like a prolonged period of time?
Yes.
So it's obviously going to be quite a paradigm shift for a civilization as old as the Egyptians were at the time that it happened, you know, with all these other civilizations around it. You know, you really don't find an equivalent anywhere in the ancient world as far as continuity than you do with the Egyptians. You know, you have certain states like the Neo-Assyrian Empire that kind of try and take some of the things that the Assyrians did and remold it in their tradition. But the Neo-Assyrian Empire didn't have a continuity with the old Assyrian Empire. It kind of got revived artificially, you know, like it got restarted after a period of time where it was dormant, more or less. And the intermediate period, it's not quite as bad as it is with the Assyrians, but it's still, you have a case where you have so many generations live and die in a world where that kind of level of social disruption had never been experienced by the people in Egypt itself. And now all of a sudden they're going through that. And obviously that's going to leave a trauma upon whoever ends up surviving it. But I wanted to address something that Papyrus was just talking about. Could you go back like 5 seconds?
Yes, of course.
Because it says something.
Oh, I can do this. Oops.
Yeah, if you just press the little the back
Yeah.
arrow on your keyboard, it's very good. No grain or grass can be found. Barley appeared on all the roads. Well, I mean, like, no grain or grass can be found. That's not very surprising when literally just earlier in the text it said that, you know, the Nile's flooding, but there's nobody out there to plow the fields. So why would you find grain all over the place if nobody's producing it? You know, like, I think they're trying to say here that, like, oh, all the grain is gone because it got burnt up with everything else. And it's like, no, it was describing the palaces and the buildings being burnt up because that's what freaking happens when a city gets sacked. Basically,
Right.
everything that isn't nailed down gets burnt or destroyed or carried off by whoever's sacking the city.
Right. And so, as I said, the text is talking about the first intermediate period, and one of the let's see, the trademark of it is the idea that, so it's also mentioning, for instance, the slave is now or the servant is dressed like the master.
Yeah, and women that who are only able to use water for reflections now use mirrors, which was a
Right.
huge status
It's
symbol back in the day to own a mirror.
oh yeah. So it's the idea that everything, as I think we actually mentioned last time, the Egyptian society was very, very structured in a hierarchical fashion, like the pyramids. I mean, it's like a pyramid with the pharaoh on top. And that was the idea of Ma'at. So to flip that pyramid upside down, that hierarchical pyramid upside down, was the essence of chaos, and chaos equals the destruction of all existence, not just the destruction of Egypt as a nation, but the destruction of everything that is or and ever has been in the universe, the stars, sun, everything. And the text itself, so the name Ipuer is a name that's typical for the period that is between like the middle the middle slash end of the Middle Kingdom and to the end of the New Kingdom. So we can be pretty sure to date its origin to that. I mean, it's been dated in other ways, but just to simplify it, it we can say for sure it was not created during the first intermediate period, but rather later in the 19th period. And it's probable that it has to do with like warning, igniting this cultural memory of great upheaval where everything was turned upside down. So it's sort of it's an admonition. That's why it's called an admonition text.
Right.
And I do not see how, when you look at the totality of the text and the theme of it, the history behind it, I cannot see how you can think that this is what's happening under Moses. There is no mentioning of a guy named Moses. There is no mentioning of Israelites. In fact, they didn't. There is no text prior to the Merneptah Stele that even mentions Hebrews as a name, as a group of people. So no, I just
I mean, you have examples all over culture, like, you know, in May 28th, 1453, when Constantine the 11th was giving his final speech, he mentioned Hannibal and the great struggle that the Romans had to face against him, in reference to the great struggle that they were facing then, like 800 or 900 years after the fact. So it's not uncommon when you get civilizations that span that length of time for them to make reference to other times of great hardship, to kind of try and stir great emotions and feelings in the people that are listening to that, because you get an idea that, you know, yeah, we've been through these sorts of things before, but we came out on top then, so surely we can come out on top now, or something of that nature.
Exactly. We see these sort of thoughts and behaviors and psychology throughout history in all sorts of oh, thank you, my love, in all sorts of societies. Let's see. Yes. Sorry, I was just handed some books that I forgot to bring.
That's all right. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. He's a very, 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 very good man. Shall we continue this treadmill of futility?
Yeah, let's do it.
On all the roads. Surely what could be seen yesterday has disappeared. The land is abandoned due to barrenness, and likewise the cutting of linen. This description from the Ipuwer papyrus reflects the chaos caused by the plagues of Egypt, with the land devastated and natural resources scarce, very similar to what is described in Exodus regarding the destruction and suffering in Egypt. Now, observe the striking similarity with the plague of fiery hail mentioned in Exodus chapter 9, verses 23, 24, 25, and 26, as well.
Wait, I just remembered one. I say wait, I have the controls to pause. I just remembered one additional detail. The earliest written source we have of the Exodus is generously dated to, I believe it's the 8th century. I have heard much later datings, like the 4th or 5th. But if we're going to be generous, let's say the 8th century. The Ipuwer papyrus, as I said, is dated around 1250. That's 450 years.
Yeah.
So if the Hippo were papaya, that's older than the United States as a nation.
I just once can these people be like, oh, it's like a 10-year little time gap, where it could be like interpreted as like, oh, it's just a genuine mistake, or like, like maybe they just misread the text or something like that, where it's like, okay, like a little minor, because like even in a modern context, right? Like if you say something happened 10 years ago and in reality it happened 20 or 30 years ago, you're going to get looked at a little funny by most people. Because in a modern context, it's easy to look at like things like that and go, well, people should just be better informed about those things. With more ancient events that you're just totally removed from and have no context for, I can obviously make a little bit more leeway for that. If you want to get a couple of things wrong as far as getting a few decades off, or maybe even 100 years off or so, like, okay, that's really not the end of the world as far as I'm concerned. But when you're routinely rubber banding around 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 freaking years, even though as long as 1,000 years, with as far as how long they try to compare this event, which, remember, they're trying to say that the Exodus didn't happen in the 1200s BC.
Right.
They're trying to say that it wasn't under the time of Ramses. They're trying to say all of this happened in more equivalent to like the times of Djoser, which would have been much earlier. Well, sorry, a bit later than that.
Quite a bit later. Though they haven't.
No, you know what? I got that mixed up with my Joseph.
Yes, that was Joseph. So
no, these people's it's hard to keep track sometimes when you're dealing with lies. Sorry, no. With Joseph, it was the time of Joseph. With this, they're talking about like the first intermediate period, which is much later than that.
So they again, correction. We haven't. They haven't mentioned the first intermediate period. The Ipuwer papyrus takes place in that time, which is the papyrus they are talking about now. And they haven't revealed when exactly they think this was supposed to take place, but we happen to know where they are going to place. Let's see. So the guy here, it's very, very small. It says Imhotep 3. So that statue is a statue depicting Thutmose the Third, which is he was the pharaoh to
3, but I'll let it slide.
Oh, okay. he not preceded. He's the pharaoh to take over after Hatshepsut, and that places him around 1500 BCE. So the what's that? Yeah, Joseph, as they thought was Imhotep. I guess Imhotep 1.
No, you got that wrong. Imhotep 1. Yeah, no, you're right. That is correct. They think that he's Imhotep 1, because I was about to say that they thought that was someone else, but that's Joe. But then why do they portray him as a pharaoh when the story itself doesn't? Why would he be called Imhotep 1, which is clearly a royal title, when he was never pharaoh?
Well, these are one of the many, many, many questions that are left to be answered.
I shouldn't be taking us down these rabbit hole, but it's just something that, like, as somebody who tries to like be historically minded and tries to study history, that's just one of those things that like say, very obvious historical inaccuracy alert.
Yes, it's one of those things that makes you draw attention to it, and be like, wait a minute. And I mean, sometimes it turns out that you are wrong, which is why you look at the sources, and the sources not being YouTube videos made by AI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
The three-footed Pharaoh.
yes, the three-footed pharaoh with a
That's a
very
good.
polished middle foot.
That's not a bad band name. Three-footed Pharaoh.
It is. Do they have
Not
to be
bad.
3?
It has to be 3.
Okay.
You know what the third leg is, Deviant. We'll keep going.
I do. We just saw it.
It's true. It's true. They ruined a whole building just to keep it all shiny. We found that out
Yeah.
just earlier. I'm sorry, audience. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm gonna say for them, it's okay.
You're gonna pull a C. You're gonna forgive me on behalf of them. That's very kind of you, Deviant. Thank you.
Well, that's good enough.
I appreciate that. That's very magnanimous of you.
Isn't it? I try to be a very benevolent ruler.
Oh, it's not
Otherwise,
easy
we'll
when you
die.
rule
No,
over
it
such
isn't.
fools.
Okay, let's
Yes,
we
yes.
can
Let's
do this.
continue.
I mean, we have gone 2 minutes of the 50 minutes and 23 seconds.
Fine, we'll actually address the video. Whatever.
Well, it's not easy when
Yeah.
Egypt is such a freaking fascinating subject. Ancient Egypt, history at large, is so absolutely magnificent, and to see it like manhandled in this way is just, it's frankly infuriating, if I'm to be honest, which is why I have to joke about it. Otherwise I would fucking burst at the seams if I were to what's the word, fridge. If I took it too seriously, I would burst at the seams, because I absolutely, hate. You could say hate that these sort of ideas are being portrayed in this way, as if they held the same truth, the same backing by facts as actual scholarship.
Right.
I want people to be fascinated by history. I want people to find the same joy in it as I do. I realize that everyone won't, because people are interested by different things.
Right.
And it's not done. History is fascinating, and it's not just kings and dates and wars. There is so much more, and there is so much to learn from history. And it doesn't help when it's being misconstrued and twisted. And yeah. Also,
Well,
I
and
would like to say that if you want to like look at history from a biblical perspective, there is loads there that are very, very, very interesting and very fascinating, and there's much to be found. This is like it's not the bottom of the barrel. It's more like the remains
I'd say the
of
only
the
thing
barrel.
that separates it from the bottom of the barrel is the fact that it doesn't get distributed to a load of people all throughout society. You know, it's not like Chariot of the Gods or any
Yeah.
of
Oh
that
goodness.
crap where like, you know, it's literally like colored an entire generation's misconception of freaking historical concepts. It's not quite that bad, but it's really only because of the fact that they don't have that influence, although they would desperately love to have it if only they were able to. It's not for lack of trying that's preventing them from getting it. It's just the
No.
fact that it's not compelling.
Yeah. True.
It's not compelling until we spin it into gold. You know, we're like Rumpelstiltskin over here.
Oh. That's a very rare reference, and I very much like it.
Well, you know, it pays to be the literate Christian Pike. Keep going.
Oh goodness. Franz Kafka.
If you know, you know, audience. If you know, you know.
As verses 31 and 32, and also in chapter 10, verse 15. Fire came down on the earth, and there was hail and fire mixed. Note that the similarity is remarkable with the Ipuwer papyrus, which reports how columns, gates, and walls were consumed by fire. Continuing, the hail struck all the land of Egypt, hitting everything that was in the field, both man and beast. It struck all the grass and broke all the trees of the field. Again, observe the similarity with the Ipuwer papyrus, which talks about the scarcity of barley, wheat, birds, and fish, in addition to mentioning that people fed on the grass, dragged by the water, while the birds could not find grain. The similarity with the book of Exodus is extremely striking. Continuing with the reading of Exodus, only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. The flax and barley were damaged, for the barley was in the ear and the flax in bloom. But the wheat and spelt were not affected because they had not yet grown.
Is any of that in there, like at all?
I have to.
Like, we gotta Control F and just kind of type a couple of those things in the text real quick here. Let's do a quick fact check because that just sounds so freaking. That does not sound like the same voice as the other text.
Wait, did he say that? Because it says at the bottom, Book of Exodus.
I thought this was. Well, they're using the same voice then for both of these, which is just extremely misleading.
He was talking about. I was sure that it was from the Ipuwer papyrus, which is why I kind of missed it, because I was going back to the book by Alan Gardner, and virtually, what's the word? I was flipping through it,
right.
So I missed the detail of what he was saying, but
yeah, go back like 30 seconds or so, and let's give that another listen.
Very sad.
He's very sad.
He's lost his third leg.
My building is gone. Why did they maintain it so poorly?
I should never have made that freaking statue.
Oh, woe is me. At least I know people will not use it in the future to propagate misinformation. That is my only solace in these troubled times.
Oh, poor Pharaoh.
I told him not that long, and he committed anyway.
Goodness.
All right.
Okay.
Deep breath.
Stage face.
That's right. This is serious. We're scholars, Deviant. We're trying to
Yes.
be serious about it.
Yes. This is a very, very serious subject.
Yes.
Very serious.
This
video.
is being presented to us very. Did you hear the reverb on that guy talking earlier? You don't have unless your voice sounds like this while you're saying it. You need to like you're speaking from the other side of an airplane hangar with the amount of reverb that your voice creates. Do I sound like I have gravitas now? For my voice has reverb behind it.
Very much.
Just ridiculous, like the things, the little tricks they do in this to try and like lend more credence to it than it does.
Yeah, and we're going to re-listen to this part. Just to, as I said, I was so much under the impression that this was that what he was saying was that this is what the Ipwer Papyrus says.
That's what I thought too.
Which is strange because I get that I might miss something because I'm not always on the proverbial ball.
But I really do think that they're trying to like mislead people because they're having the Ipua Papyrus and Exodus read in exactly the same voice, which is just like a psychological trick to try and get people to be like, oh, these things are like synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
This is directly backing up the events of the other one.
And note that the video we're watching now inside the video is not something that's been we are not talking about the Proverbs guys doing this. This is just a video they are using as their event, their evidence. So just to keep it fair, we're not saying that they are the ones trying to mislead people. I say they are the ones who are being misled by this video.
But Deviant Outcast, what about the great head bonk of 2492 BC?
No, that was just a guy chasing a butterfly.
Dang sand, man, it makes you trip.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking rocks hiding in that stuff.
And again, anyone who can make it to the end, you are going to see the guy.
Yeah, if you tune in all the way to the end, that's your reward.
Yes.
Don't skip. Yeah, I see you, person watching this after the fact. You're thinking, oh, I'll just skip right to the end. I'll be able to see what I want. No, don't you do it. Don't touch that dial. Well, I sound as old as Deviant when I say something like that. No,
what?
I mean
the fridge. That came out of nowhere.
Well, that's where all best jokes happen, is out of nowhere.
that is true. That is true.
I'm a nice person, can't you tell?
Yes, you are. You are? Yeah. Yes.
Only as nice as Steven is Christian. Let's play the video.
Okay, that will have to stand for you. Let's play.
Clarity with the Ipua Papyrus, which talks about the scarcity of barley, wheat, birds, and fish, in addition to mentioning that people fed on the grass, dragged by the water, while the birds could not find grain.
What a sad
The similarity with the book of Exodus is extremely striking. Continuing with the reading of Exodus, only in the land of Goshen.
Yeah, he did say he did.
Okay, he
we
did
both
say that
missed
it was
it. Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say that does not sound like the same voice as the Ipula Papyrus at
No.
all. But
And also like the land of Goshen didn't exist.
right,
Israel hadn't been mentioned at the time of so we were correct to draw. It's so annoying with like Swedish sayings uh that are very useful, but I don't know them in English, or I'm not sure if they are uh, an English expression, and they can sound very silly.
it's just
Like,
like the land of Goshen, right? According
mhm,
to the Bible, is supposed to be like one of the nicest places in all of Egypt. It's like the productive parts of the Nile on the, I believe it is the eastern side of the Nile, is the
yes, it's
land of
up in the
Goshen.
delta.
Right. So, like, some of the most prime real estate that all of Egypt has to offer. And according to the Bible, the Pharaoh of Joseph's time gives that land to the Israelites as like a
Yes,
reward almost for Joseph's like good stewardship over the
right.
region. Like, oh wow, you did so good for my country that I'm gonna let your people settle right here in Goshen. But yet, according to the Bible, according to this particular passage right here, even while they're slaves in Egypt, they're just allowed to stay in what would be the equivalent of like Upper Manhattan for
Yeah.
Egypt. Like they're just allowed, all these slaves are just living in penthouse apartments and just enjoying themselves and living in the lap of luxury, even though they're slave. Like, why would they be allowed to live there? Why wouldn't they be shipped to like Siwa or like the middle of freaking
Yeah,
nowhere or something like that if they're supposed to
right.
be like these second
In
class citizens?
in reality, they would probably be shipped down to a quarry near Aswan.
Right.
So
I
I
just
have
said
to,
Siwa because it was remote and it was out of the
yeah.
way from
Oh yeah,
everything else.
absolutely, absolutely. So I see a comment by Terry Strange in the chats. She said Goshen didn't exist, question mark, as if. So Terry, that's not what I said. I said it, or maybe I wasn't clear enough. Goshen didn't exist at the time that the Ipuwer papyrus is taking place, which is about 1400 years prior to what we are talking about here.
Right.
So I'm not saying it didn't exist. It's a territory in Lower Egypt, which is the northern part, up at the delta, on the eastern side.
Yeah. It makes no sense to, if it was supposed to be a reward to give to the people of Joseph, then if they were put into servitude later in the Bible, directly as a result of Joseph's successors and their actions, then why would they just be allowed to stay in this prime real estate? I guess it's easier for the narrative because they have less far to go in order to
Sure.
make the Red Sea crossing. Like, logistically, I guess it's easier for them to explain it that way. But that's like the only justification I can think of as to why
Well,
that would be there.
there is one other thing, and it's the mentioning of in the Bible, in the biblical narrative. Uh, it's said that the Israelites were building a city which is probably the city of Ramesses, which was built by Ramesses II. It was his uh, the new capital, and it's placed up there because uh, it's a, what's the word, gräns Gräns. Where what's the word for where one country ends and another?
The border.
The border. Thank you. I don't know what it is. I forgot the word training earlier, Aiden. I mean,
It's all right. I wasn't even pointing it out. You could have just kept going with it, and nobody would have known.
I know. I always tell on myself.
You do. You have a really nasty habit of doing that. It just. I know where it comes from. It comes from a past of somebody who wants to get it out and over with because you don't want to have worse consequences if you don't say it. But don't worry, Deviant. It's okay. It's all right. You're gonna be fine. Pat, I will ruffle your hair. It's okay, little guy. It'll be all right.
Thank you. Thank you. I can go back to chasing butterflies. No, but so it said that they are there to build this city, and that city is placed up in the territory. But it doesn't make any sense to say that they were given this land to kind of rule over by themselves. It's also a very strange thing to have a population that are supposedly slaves and who are giving a huge landmass to rule over.
Yeah, like I just.
It's also like the most fertile because it's plenty of water up there, which isn't the case in the rest of Egypt, as we all know. It's basically 200% sand.
But like the narrative here that Exodus is providing, you think would just make the conditions worse for the Israelites ultimately? Because if Goshen is the only place that isn't beset by all of these horrible things, guess what? You're just going to have Goshen become a land absolutely filled to the brim with refugees of the people that you wanted to have separate. Like what? According to Exodus, there's like a magical barrier between Goshen, which is like any Egyptian or non-Israelite tried to come in. It was just like, boom, boom. You can't cross the barrier. It's just a hardened barrier. No, obviously not. But there's no account we have from Egyptian history of like, everywhere in Egypt was horrible, except for this one little place. That was perfectly fine. It's nowhere in any account of Egyptian history because the Nile was the same as far as an ecosystem was concerned. It was basically freaking homogenous. If there was a problem further up the Nile, it was going to affect everything else downriver.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
So like the idea that it's like, I get that they're basically claiming magic here as far as like, well, everything else was bad, but this place was just magically saved. But like, just think about that for a moment, people in the chat. Like, what does that actually constitute? Does it constitute a magical barrier that nobody's able to cross? Because otherwise, this is just going to make things a whole lot worse for the Israelites.
Yeah. I'm keeping a goat's eye on the chat. I try to not read it too much and yet be kind of updated with it, which is hard. I try to keep my focus on what we are doing. But I happen to see Missing Mod saying, read my comment, Aiden. Nuh-uh. If you don't, you're scared. I'm not really sure which comment she is referring to.
Oh, Missing Mod is in the chat? I didn't notice. Well, I'm just going to continue to not notice for the rest of the stream because I know that's going to make her crazy. So...
Yeah, she's already said that she and Aiden are being ignored on days like this. I guess the day is Sunday?
That's right. It's because it's the Lord's Day, Missing
Yes.
Mod. I'm glad that you picked up on that.
Yes.
I'm glad that you picked up on that. It's actually in reality because you're white, but I don't want to say that out loud or oh crap. Anyway, let's play the video, guy.
Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, let's learn about Moab.
Yes, Moept. The Great Moept.
That's
I
right.
kind of like that name, actually.
Right? It kind of has a ring to it, you know?
It does. It does.
I think Moept is the name of the lead singer for the band Three-Legged Pharaoh.
Okay, with that, we continue the video.
Where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. The flax and barley were damaged, for the barley was in the ear and the flax in bloom. But the wheat and spelt were not affected because they had not yet grown. Nothing green remained, neither tree nor grass of the field, in all the land of Egypt.
Oh, so just
Once
like a total
again,
ecological
observe the striking
collapse.
similarity when the Ipuwer papyrus states that barley has perished on all the roads, that nothing seen yesterday can be seen, and that the land was abandoned due to sterility. Continuing with the Ipuwer papyrus, surely all the herbs...
So I think that was what threw me off last time, because he says continuing with the Ipuwer papyrus, he's obviously referencing back to before he read from Exodus.
Yeah, like he's just jumping all over the frickin' place.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be fair. It could be me. I have a giant case of ADHD and PTSD. I know my weaknesses, or at least some of them. But it does make it pretty difficult. But we try our best to keep our focus and go back and double check. I think.
Herds of goats are with hearts crying, the cattle cry out because of the state of the land, and in the same way, the flocks wander without shepherds, bewildered, and no man can gather them, each trying to bring back those marked with his name.
Hold on. Let me get this straight.
Comparing with...
So there's a massive frickin' famine that's like tearing the land apart. There's a total ecological collapse where there's nothing growing in Egypt whatsoever. There's no trees, there's no grass, there's no anything, but the animals are still somehow alive, and they're still just kind of like hanging out with like nobody to attend to that. You think not only the fact that the animals should have nothing to eat at this point, so why are there even animals to begin with? But wouldn't you think that every animal at that point would have been like rounded up and frickin' butchered by starving people who have nothing to eat? Like, why are there animals just wandering around with nobody caring about them if people are starving?
That is a very interesting question. You would think that such a rich source of protein and calories would see its end pretty soon in such conditions.
Well, like in conditions like the Bronze Age collapse, it's exactly what you see. Like herding and farming, yeah, they are still present, but they become less prominent as people literally become so freaking poor that they have to resort to things like banditry and migration just to keep themselves alive. Like specialization immediately goes out the window when you deal with a societal collapse. Specialists are the product of a stable society that is capable of functioning long term under not just specialists, but a much larger underclass of generalists that keep them going. At the end, at a collapse of society, you don't have any of those. It becomes all generalists because that's what you need to do in order to survive when there's nobody else taking care of you. You need to be able to know how to hunt and how to gather and how to fish and how to do all of these things that used to only be done specially by specific groups of people. That's what you have when you have a total societal collapse, and you basically had that go on with the first intermediate period. So that kind of event where you just have the bottom kind of fall out from society is going to precipitate those sorts of things, not the Bible, and not because the magic man got all upset because the people weren't obeying what the magic man wanted them to do.
Right.
I just think
No,
one
but
meets Occam's razor a little bit better than the other, especially considering one has a lot of historical precedent and the other one has the precedent of der Bible said so.
exactly. Oh, Dan is kissing someone.
I'm not even paying attention, man. Don't
No.
even
The book of
that
Exodus.
crap.
Me neither.
Chapter 9, verses 3, 19 and 21. Behold, the hand of the Lord will be upon your cattle in the field, upon the horses, donkeys, camels, oxen, and sheep. There will be a very grievous pestilence. Send and gather your cattle and all that you have in the field, for every man and animal that is found in the field and is not brought home will die when the hail comes. But he who did not regard the word of the Lord left his servants and cattle in the field.
Wait,
Wait, the slaves have servants?
right. Like, hold on a second. So the slaves have that's a good point. I didn't even catch that. The thing I was gonna bring up was that was a good catch, Deviant, thank you. But the thing that I was gonna bring up was, didn't it just describe earlier in the Ipua Papyrus that after the hail happened, that like animals were wandering around in the fields and there was nobody there to attend to them? So I thought all of the animals that weren't already all gathered up were supposed to be dead. So which one is it? Were they all dead after the hail and the only ones that were left were the ones in the fields? Or was it after the hail there was a whole bunch of them wandering around because nobody was there to take care of them? Which one is it?
I mean, I have to admit, I am very confused about which part of when he's reading, because of the graphics in the background and his voice, and also my previous difficulty of concentrating. I have a very hard time keeping track of what is claimed to be from Exodus, not claimed, but what is from the Exodus. Here, I think he said it was from the Exodus.
Hold on, just one sec.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Let me just waft that up to my nose really quick. Yes. Very, very good. Cabernet Fartignon, that one is. Yes, very nice. It must be a... I'm detecting a little bit of a bean burrito undertone within that fart. Very nice, very nice. That's been aging in the cask for about a week now. Continue.
Yeah. So to reiterate, because there have been a lot of people at least making, I don't know if they have been watching from the beginning or not, but they have been showing up in chat now. The video within the video we are watching is making a comparison between the narrative of the Exodus and the Ipuwer Papyrus. The Ipuwer Papyrus is what we call an admonition text. It is a warning, basically. It talks about the or references the upheaval and the chaos at the time of the first intermediate period. There are there are several, I should say, several admonition texts that we have from ancient Egypt, and it has to do with portraying times of chaos and the importance of maintaining the concept of ma'at, which was the main task of the Pharaoh, was to uphold ma'at, which is the cosmic balance of how things are supposed to be, and if they are not, it's the end of all of existence. It's the end of the stars. It's the end of the freaking universe. And also the first intermediate period takes place in the 22nd century BCE.
What's a millennia or two between friends, Deviant? Come on.
Yeah.
It's only an eon. Like, well, who cares, right?
It's not important.
Yeah.
The conclusion is, so the reason why Mia and Aiden might not seem to be listening that closely has to do with that it's a very, 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 very far stretch to say that what's portrayed in the Ipuwer papyrus that's dated, that the events taking place in the Ipuwer papyrus is dated to the 22nd century BCE, is the same that is described in the Exodus, which is supposedly taking place about 1,000 years later. So, yeah, it basically cuts it off at the third foot.
You know, I keep buying different microwaves left, right, and center, and I keep returning them because not one freaking microwave has an eon setting on it. I keep trying to look for it. I keep trying to find it, but no, it's got minutes, it's got hours. I even found one that had a day, but not one had a freaking eon setting on it. And I think, quite frankly, this is something that many manufacturers have overlooked, because an eon isn't all that long. You know, like, what is it? It's like 2, 3, maybe even 4 minutes or something like that. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, probably something like that.
It might, you know what? Put me on record as saying it might be slightly longer than 4 minutes. That's my official diagnosis on an eon.
I mean, it could, but can it thaw up a piece of bread?
That's a good question.
And even more importantly, can it thaw up the owl who's perching on the piece of bread?
I knew that was coming. The real question comes, is it going to thaw the piece of bread but not make the bread super squishy and unpalatable? Because nobody wants to eat a horrible, floppy, squishy piece of bread that doesn't have proper texture to it.
That's very true. I think that an eon is right at the mark where
it toasts it perfectly. No, it toasts like once you scrape out like the ashes of whatever's left afterwards. I think it really captures the essence of what bread is supposed to be. And humanity's been making bread long enough at this point that we've probably gotten like 2 or 3 batches of bread done by now. So that's pretty good.
And with that, we continue the video.
Ipuwer papyrus also mentions that the day did not dawn, which aligns with the account in Exodus chapter 10, verse 22. There was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. As for the plague of the firstborn, the Ipuwer papyrus describes, "Surely the sons of the great were dashed against the wall. Surely the children of the nobles were abandoned in the streets. Surely the people have diminished in number, and whoever buries his brother is found everywhere.
Pause.
There is a groaning mixed with lamentation."
So
I have something to say when you're finished. I know, you're fine. I'm eating candy, okay?
Very professional. Anyway.
No, sorry.
Don't choke on the freaking show, God. It's not a good idea.
Oh,
goodness. It's not advisable. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. All right. You're gonna have to freaking call Soot. Anyway, they're trying to like make the illusion here, especially with that image that they're showing, that like like the children being dashed against walls is supposed to be like the death of every firstborn in Egypt. But that's not how the story describes it. The story isn't that the angel of death came and picked up every firstborn son in Egypt and manually just dashed their freaking head against the wall. It's not what happened, according to the story. It just says that every single firstborn was killed in one night. Which is not described in this at all. There's nothing about how then night fell and the entire land of Egypt woke to every firstborn slain. Like, there's nothing like that in there. It's talking about the fact that whenever you have a major upheaval in society, like we were talking about earlier, like with the first intermediate period, you know, you're going to have a scenario where the people who were in power are going to kind of be looked at with resentment by the people that held power over them. Now, that's always going to be the case, even in times of peace. But in times of extreme chaos, that's really the only time that the little guy, the underclass, has a chance to really actually take out that frustration materially on those that wronged them. So you get examples of people being killed because of their higher social standing and for the looting and possession of their property, because people are desperate and they want to not only feed themselves, but also take out their frustrations on people they no doubtably blame for why society has gotten as bad as it has at the time of the writing of the Ipua Papyrus.
Right, and also, to me, looking at this from an Egyptological perspective, I'm wait 1 second. I still was about to choke.
Vivian, chew your freaking food, man. Do I have to get sit in here to like sit on the sidelines and just make sure that you're all right? Like, I'll get him to come in here and be your lifeguard if you need him.
Does he have to feed you?
Yeah.
He has to move her mouth up and down in order to do the chewing action. That's funny.
So, again, from an Egyptological perspective, when they are talking, he just mentioned, if I go back like 10 seconds, the whole part about people. Wait, where was it? Oh, it skipped over it. It's after this part, I believe. About the dead. The children of nobles were abandoned in the streets. Again, toppling over that hierarchical pyramid, turning things upside down. The servant girl having a mirror
instead of water to reflect herself.
Exactly. It's all this. It's the portrayal of Ma'at not being kept, which, as we said, was threatening the existence. And people, I believe, I'm going to play it for a couple of seconds just to see exactly what.
Nobles were abandoned in the streets. Surely the people have diminished in number, and whoever buries his brother is found everywhere. There is a groaning mixed with lamentation throughout the land.
So he's saying, whoever buries his brother is found everywhere. This is a portrayal of a lot of people dying.
Yeah, not a lot of children in particular either. If it's talking about brothers, it's just saying that families are getting wiped out. Not just children, but just like indiscriminate almost with the way that it's being written. Just people are dying, and a lot of people are dying.
Yeah. Which is also what was happening during the first intermediate period. And the Ipuwer papyrus is far from the only text from ancient Egypt that are describing these types of events. So yeah.
Now, observe the remarkable similarity between the Book of Exodus and the account in the Ipuwer papyrus.
Oh, right. Before I go further, because Sut actually pointed something out that I missed in the video, that both of us missed. There was something about camels in Egypt. Do you remember that, Aiden?
Well, yeah, all their video portrayals of like Egypt always universally started with people riding camels, even though it was trying to portray a land that didn't have those for several hundred years until after the fact.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember. It's just one of those things that comes down to, oh, well, what do people think of when they think of Egypt? They think of the desert, and they think of pyramids, and they think of people riding the thing that walks around in the desert, which is that thing with the humps on it. And it's like, no, it's not how they did things. They had horses, they had cavalry. And you would think, based on the fact that people like to think that camels are somehow like less effective than horses when it comes to warfare, they can be very effective in warfare. Plenty of people have used camels as mounts for like archery and even just conventional cavalry.
Oh yeah, they tried to create a camel cavalry in the US. I believe it was at the time of the Civil War.
That is freaking fantastic.
The sad issue was that the camels didn't like the environment, and
that sounds like some Confederate nonsense. That sounds like some Southern nonsense. You know what we gotta do over here? We gotta get Johnny Reb up on top of camel. That's what we need to do to get this war run. Tally-ho!
Oh, marvelous.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Yes.
In Exodus 12:29, it is written, "He struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the prison, and all the firstborn of the animals. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead." Note the connection between this great cry and the great groaning mixed with lamentations mentioned in the Ipuwer papyrus.
That
exactly what Exodus
when a
describes.
Lot of people die, right? Like people kind of like get sad and they cry and they like lament the fact that, holy crap, like my family's dead and I don't have like anything to do. Like I was saying before, the idea of people dying had even more weight in a population where the overall population is much lower than modern times, where you've got an Earth that supports a population several times its carrying capacity without the invention of things like nitrogen and phosphorus being introduced into farming. Without that, we wouldn't be able to have our population. So life, even though it was portrayed as really cheap back in the day, locally it was anything but that. There was fewer people to go around and far fewer people to keep things up and running. Not only that, you have to consider the fact that social networking, and not like Facebook or Twitter or any of that, but like real in-person social networking, the people you know in your village, the people that you trade with, you know, like those people that you deal with on a daily or near daily basis, those are basically the sum total of everyone that most people in that time would have known. They didn't have the opportunity to talk with somebody in, you know, Sudan or in Sweden or really anywhere outside of the village where they grew up in the vast, unless you were like a merchant or something like that. That was basically all you knew. So
that's been true up to the modern era.
That's very true. Yeah, basically right up until the Industrial Revolution. That's like always just been the average state of affair. But people don't think about that because we live in a post-industrial world. So we just kind of take for granted the idea that, who isn't necessarily just the people in your community. If anything, people are beginning to come to know the people in their community less and less in favor of knowing specific people outside of the community who agree more with their ideals. Anyways, point that I'm making is that the lamentations that people would have even nowadays, for people that they know dying, would have been elevated even more based on the fact that they would have known fewer people, and the people that they would have known would have been concentrated into a much smaller area.
Yeah, and on top of that, something that absolutely needs to be mentioned here, besides the fact that we are again seeing which I have already pointed out, the rubber banding of time, where there is 1,000 years between the events of the Ipuwer Papyrus, the events described in the Ipuwer Papyrus, and what the events of the Exodus. It's 1,000 years. It's from now back to the end of the Viking Age.
Yeah.
So take that in account. But also the fact that even though we know that the first intermediate period was one of these events where society, the order within the Egyptian society, the Egyptian culture, crumbled. They were no longer just one pharaoh in power. We do not see some sort of increase of deaths compared to other periods of time in the archaeological material during the first intermediate period. We do not see it later, for that matter, either. So at not during the first intermediate period, not for the events of the Ipuwer Papyrus, nor for the events described in the Exodus, can we see what's the word? A basically genocide level of deaths, which is kind of strange because it should be there. But we know when it comes to these texts describing that the Egyptian texts, that they weren't written during that time. They are not historical texts. And I think it would behoove people to try and look at the Bible in a different light, a more historically correct light, because it is a very interesting collection of texts. And you're not doing yourself nor anyone else a favor by trying to squeeze it in where it does not belong.
Deviant, I have very bad news.
Oh no.
The local bakery that we usually get our cheese buns from is closed on Sundays.
No.
They're citywide famous for their cheesy buns, and we couldn't get any. And I was going to dip my chili in those cheesy buns.
Not the other way around.
No, of course not. Why would that make sense? I'm just going to pour it on top of it. I didn't make a mistake and get those when I said that, Deviant. I meant what I said. I'm going to double down, because as I know from the Proverbs, guys, if you just continually double down rather than just admit you're wrong about something, it makes you look really good. So that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. You do that while I keep playing the video.
So wait, let me get this straight. When you have chicken nuggets, rather than dipping the chicken nuggets into the sauce, you don't just pour the sauce on top of the chicken and make a mess all over the place? That's not what you do?
Typically, no.
I mean, whatever.
But,
I mean, I thought I was talking to an Egyptologist, but it sounds like I'm talking to a Philistine, honestly.
Well, I would say that I bet there are a couple of people in the chat right now who don't really see a difference between the two.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's
go.
About the death of the firstborn. Finally, there is something very interesting in the Ipuwer papyrus,
Hold on.
which mentions...
Go back like 10 seconds.
Okay. I went back 15 seconds.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. So this might be a bit
That's all right.
incomprehensible.
That's all right. Let's go.
Okay.
and the great groaning mixed with lamentations mentioned in the Ipuwer papyrus, exactly what Exodus describes about the death of the firstborn.
Hold on,
Finally,
pause.
there is something very interesting.
Okay, I thought I heard that correctly. That's not true. That's not true. They're trying to say that it perfectly matches the description of the death of every firstborn. There's nothing in the Ipuwer that talks about the firstborn child. It's not mentioned. It talks about, if you want to talk about specifics like familial relations being mentioned, it talks about brothers being buried, which last I checked is a little bit different than children, but I don't know. I mean, like,
yeah, I mean,
obviously you can have children that are brothers, but at the same time,
it was mentioning children being, what was it, smashed against the wall.
But they were noble children. It wasn't just talking about children in general.
And exactly, and also, to my, as you pointed out, and to my knowledge as well, the Bible doesn't say that children were smashed against the wall. That sounds more like what's described at the birth of Jesus, right, where they go out to kill the children.
Yeah, Herod has the census, and because he gets a vision of like the firstborn of a certain mother is going to basically cause the undoing of his kingdom, and he gets paranoid because of that. So he orders that every single which no freaking Roman emperor would ever allow to happen. I don't care how freaking tyrannical they are. I don't care if you have to deal with like a Caligula level of just utterly deranged to have somebody sign off on, yeah, let's just totally slaughter our future productive working populace. That'll go great 20 years down the line.
Right. No.
But anyways, yeah, it's trying to make a connection between those two. And I'm sure that the later story was written specifically to reflect Exodus, because the Bible loves to call back on earlier themes in order to try and like establish this continuity between itself. But that just tells me that the writers changed elements in order to make the story fit better rather than actually recounting things as they happened.
Yeah.
Because nowhere in any point in history do we ever have Herod ordering every single firstborn to be killed in his territory. That just never happened.
No, nor did the census, but that's another topic. Just throwing it out there.
I'm sorry, I know we got off on a bit of a different tangent. It's a good thing to talk about specifically because it's not just this little bit that the Bible gets wrong historically. The Bible has ahistoricity all over the place. It has women becoming the wives of Persian emperors who we never hear about, and Joseph becoming vizier of Egypt, because they're trying to like associate themselves with the superpowers of their day to gain more legitimacy, even though we don't have any kind of account of it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear to me that the Exodus, as described in the Bible, is a founding myth. that is meant to collect a group of people who has previously they have had connections, but they haven't had this sense of legitimacy and unity, which is what they get from the founding myth. As I believe I mentioned last time we did this, the same thing is with the Arthurian myth from England. Every nation who has had aspirations of dominion and empire has a foundation myth alongside it, and that is what we see in the Exodus. It's meant to rally people, diverse people, as one unity, fighting for a common cause.
So Phantom, thank you for correcting me. No. The Quirinius had the census. Herod heard about the birth from the Magi. Yeah, no, you're right. I was thinking about the census because of the fact that Jesus wasn't counted among those in the census. But you're right, it wasn't Herod that conducted that. He used that in order to convince himself that he had killed every firstborn child in Bethlehem, but he didn't get the fear of it because of that. He got it because of the Magi. You're correct.
Good.
Thank you for the correction, good. Phantom.
Yes, thank you, Phantom.
Interesting in the Ipua papyrus, which mentions, surely.
I forgot one important thing. We are talking about these two different accounts, and this video is trying to draw a connection by pointing at similarities, which is something that, I mean, it's not wrong to look for similarities. Absolutely not. It's perfectly legitimate. But the issue is that they only put focus on the similarities, and they are stretching those similarities to make them, to portray them as being more alike than they actually are. While if you were doing this from an honest place, from a scholarly perspective, you would put equal weight at the similarities as the what's the opposite of similarities?
The differences.
Differences is the simple word. Yes, thank you. The differences, which isn't what's being done here. And I'm sad to say it, but it's exactly the same kind of rhetoric and the same kind of psychological tricks that are being used by people like those who are behind Ancient Aliens.
Oh, for sure.
And what's his freaking name? That damn
Dan Brown.
George.
George.
He looks like
no, the guy of. Sorry.
He's the guy from Ancient Aliens. I think his name was George. But we looked him up the other day. He looks kind of like the manager ECW guy, Paul Heyman. He was born in Switzerland, I think. That was Sweden. I'm not sure.
No, it's definitely not Sweden. It's Switzerland, but it's not him.
Switzerland.
Switzerland. It's not him I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the guy with the ancient apocalypse.
Aiden.
He is the ancient.
What did I tell you about bringing that up on the show, Gangster Ghost? What did I tell you?
Miss Outcast, I need to tell you. That guy from Ancient Aliens I told you about?
Mm-hmm. Are you there?
He's building it up. He's building up the suspense.
Can you hear me?
yeah, I'm feeling. Yeah,
He,
now I can hear you.
he's Greek. I found out. I looked him up.
I know.
What if
He
he's
has
related to Achilles?
That
Could
guy
be.
is an idiot. He does not know what he is talking about. He thinks that the earth is round. He is deceived. He is a mocker. I do not want to talk about him. We can go on with the show. I am trying to learn right now.
Graham Hancock was the name I was looking for. It's the same thing that he does to try and paint out this image of there having been a global civilization that was much more technologically advanced
Right.
and way before the time of Egypt and even the time of, I was gonna say modernity, but I mean ancienticity.
Ancient-dernity? I don't know. You're very silly, Deviant. You're in a very silly mood today, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
It's good because I'm always in a silly mood.
Good. I kind of feel a bit for the audience, but I'm having too much fun.
Right? Screw the audience. Who do they care?
Yeah, screw
the Proverbs guys don't care about their audience. They always produce unwatchable crap. So why don't we follow their lead?
True. I'm gonna say goodnight to Soot now, so I'm gonna play the video.
Leading Gangster Ghost channel to the dumpsters of success. Yes.
Yes.
Gold, lapis lazuli, silver, turquoise, carnelian, and bronze are placed around the necks of the slave women. This contrasts with Exodus 12:35-36. And they asked the Egyptians for jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and clothing, and they gave them what they asked. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. According to some scholars, the Ipua
Deviant just sprinted back to her computer when she heard that I was talking. She was like, "Oh crap! Oh crappy! I'd better get going."
I'm saying goodnight to my fiance.
Aww.
Because he's a working man.
Wow, he works for a living. What a loser. He works for a living. Wow, okay, whatever. Anyway, let's watch this video, I guess. I just found it funny that they were saying, this contrasts with the Ipua papyrus. It's like, if you're saying it contrasts, then you're saying if they disagree. Like, that's the whole point of contrast, is that, like, you get black and you got white. You got two things that are opposite to each other. So when you say something contrasts with something, I think they meant to say compare. But that's kind of the whole reason why the phrase compare and contrast is a thing. Because it's functionally different. And I'm about done vamping, so you guys got to finish up with that little good night smooch of yours. And we got to continue with the video.
I just did.
Thank you.
No further details. But I'm sure you made very, very good points there in between.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Let's keep going.
So Sid pointed out the thing about the camels was from the Exodus, that it said, "So gather up your camels," which kind of points to when it was being written, or
wait, that's
that
in
it
the
was
Bible,
not.
that gather up your camels is in like Exodus, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Hold on, give me one sec.
Mm-hmm. I'm singing meanwhile. Oh yeah. The hand. Do you find something, Eden? So in
Thank goodness it has a little thing that's like, if when you accidentally re-tab over to the other screen and you press the X button instead, it's like, are you trying to leave the app? Are you sure about that? Because I would have totally just dropped out of there if it weren't for that feature. Thank you. Appreciate that, Restream. One of the few features of your freaking platform that I actually appreciate, because holy crap, does it not like to work on the phone. Anyways, Exodus 12:36. Oh,
I found Exodus 9.
No, this isn't the one anyway. So I got the wrong one anyway. So you're probably.
There 9:3. If I read from Exodus 9, then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus say the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, the hand of the Lord will strike with a deadly pestilence to your livestock in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks.'" One would think that the almighty, all-knowing God who created everything in existence would know that there were no camels in Egypt at the time.
Yes, and that's in the KJV as well for you KJV onlyists. I just looked it up.
I realized that because I used the NRSVUE.
Yes, one of the.
And I know that there are people who will say no.
Oh, that's just a mistranslation from something earlier. They meant to say this or that. Well, the King James Version is the first commonly translated version of the scripture into English. And it says, "Behold, the hand of the Lord," and this is Exodus 9:3 KJV. "Behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain." So yeah, it does mention camels specifically. And that, as you pointed out, doesn't make any sense because camels hadn't been introduced to that region yet.
No.
So it had to have been written after that fact, which means that it would have had to have been written significantly after the actual events in question.
Yeah, about 800 years.
Hey, that's under an eon. They're doing better.
True.
It's only 4/5 of an eon.
We're closing in.
That's right. Sooner or later, they'll actually get to accidentally telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Accidentally.
I mean, it would have to be with these people.
Though I like this image with the papyrus, mostly because it's an image of papyrus. But
yes, no, it is good. I have a slight feeling that this is like actual stock footage that they used, because the papyri doesn't look like an absolute unorganized mess like I would expect it to if an AI was doing it. So
exactly, you can actually distinguish signs that are very legitimate. Like you can see my cursor, this little boink. That means 10.
So camels, from my understanding, like, it's not that they were just like like nobody in Egypt had ever even heard of a camel. Surely they did. Like they knew what they were, but that doesn't mean that they kept them really in any kind of significant number up until like the Ptolemaic period, where they just began to like begin using them because they got imported from other kingdoms that Alexander had created for himself. But even then, it was really only used for transportation rather than a general work animal. It wasn't until, I'm pretty sure, like the Arab conquest that they really started becoming like the universal animal that was used in Egypt.
Yeah.
So
it's
I wouldn't, you know what, it wouldn't be too surprising that this would have been written around the Ptolemaic period, though, because the Ptolemaic period wouldn't have been all that long after, relatively speaking, especially in comparison to how much they're rubber banding. It's really not all that long after the exile in Babylon, which is where we get some of our first recounts of this anyways. So
yeah.
it just...
So
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, it's likely that the camel were introduced to Egypt by the Persians, which is between the... I have to think because it's the minus sign makes it... The BCE is always tricky. The 6th to the 4th century BCE. When it's right before the invasion of Alexander the Great in, I believe it's 332 or 33. Right. And during the Ptolemaic era, we definitely know that they had camels, but as you pointed out, Aidan, it's not until the Arabs that you really see them as we think of the prevalence of camels in Egypt.
Right, right. Which is, just for the audience's sake, like 800 or 900 years after the time of the Ptolemies, as far as like Ptolemy the First and the Second are concerned. And I mean, it would make sense that camels would be brought up in that book, because according to tradition, Ptolemy II, supposedly, we don't have any outside sources to corroborate this, but Ptolemy II supposedly was the one that ordered the translation of the Old Testament, specifically into Greek. So, like, the origin of the Septuagint kind of translation that we have, and like the very beginning point of where we get both Hebrew and Greek sources, not just Hebrew sources, was under the orders of Ptolemy II, which would make sense because that's when we first begin to see camels actually kind of get introduced into Egypt on any kind of scale. So the person who would be writing that for Ptolemy would be familiar with camels and would probably assume that camels had just always been a thing in Egypt. So, hey, why not include it in the story, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can also be pointed out that the reason why Ptolemy II ordered this translation is because of the Library of Alexandria, which he put in place, and they strived to have every single written text being kept and stored there, which is why they made copies. For instance, if ships came into when ships came into the harbor of Alexandria, they had officials going onto the ships and taking all of the old texts that were on that ship, then making copies, giving the copies back to the original owner and keeping the original and store it at the library.
You may hate the Ptolemies, Deviant. I mean, that's fair. I'll kayfabe aside. That's pretty fair. But you got to admit, Ptolemy II was like head and shoulders above all of the other Ptolemies as far as rulers go.
He is the good one. He is the one who makes a. I mean, it's a shame that that the library was destroyed, but that wasn't really his fault. He was genuinely interested in ancient Egypt and as a culture, and not just as being the ruler of it, but the culture. And we don't see that until Cleopatra the
I was
Seventh.
about to bring that up. I was about to say, you don't really see that spark again until like 300, almost 350 years after the fact.
Right. So if I were to choose anyone from the Ptolemaic era, I would definitely choose Ptolemy II. But I also would never ever choose any one of the others.
Notice how the only two because you know what, say what you will about Ptolemy I, he wasn't the greatest guy by any means, but he was at least like competent as a ruler. I just want to say, notice how like the first two Ptolemies are like the only good ones, and then you get like hundreds of years of inbreeding, and then they just like suck for some reason. I don't know why.
It's so strange.
I know. It's like the Habsburgs.
Yeah, it's almost like marrying your sister and having children with that sister is not a good thing for the gene pool, which is something that one should take with them when they read Genesis. But that too is another story for another day.
Yeah, Charles V. You think about that, buddy.
The guy with the chin.
That's right. That's right. We got way off topic. Let's get back.
Yeah, we did. We promised Tim the time before last that we wouldn't do that. I'm sorry.
It's so freaking hard to do with history, though, because there's so many threads that you can tug on in any historical discussion, and it almost invites you when you begin tugging on one of those to look at another sub-thread and tug on that and on that and on that. The perfect example of that is if you look something up on Wikipedia and then you see another link to another topic in that article that you also find really interesting. So you look at that, and then you look at another one in that article, and next thing you know, it's 4:30 in the morning, and you're not going to get any sleep.
Right? Oh, you just painted the perfect picture of like a standard day for me.
But at least I know the entirety of the War of the Roses now and how it played out. Who cares if I get any sleep, right?
Right? Who cares if I get any sleep so my brain can actually store it in the long-term memory?
That's right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay, let's
back to it.
Yeah.
Papyrus is indeed in harmony with the plagues of Exodus and makes a strong reference to the text written by Moses. In my perspective, it is very likely that the Ipuwer text is a copy of a diary from the time of the Exodus, found in some library of the time or in the house of a librarian, considering that the Egyptians revered Thoth and treated history and literature as a form of worship to the gods, needing to remain faithful to the writings. The Ipuwer papyrus, dated to 1250 BC, could be a copy of an older text, dated around 1444 BC.
Yes, because the intermediate period definitely took place in 1440 BC.
Yeah, that's the second intermediate period, though.
Correct. No, that's correct. I just wanted to.
I would also like to point out how this guy is making several assumptions. He's assuming that Moses was a historical figure. He's assuming that the Exodus was written by Moses, even though there are no indications of that. And if you talk to actual biblical scholars, theologians who do nothing but study the Bible and the origin of the Bible, and whom I might add for any skeptics out there or non-skeptics, are predominantly Christians themselves. So we're not talking about some godless heathens here trying to besmirch God's
Holy
written
scripture.
word.
Yeah.
Exactly. Are at the absolute consensus that the Exodus, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, were written not by Moses, not only that, but by multiple authors.
It has to be. The written, like the voices that are used amongst the different passages are not considered. It's why I immediately could tell between, the reading that they were doing of the Ipuwa Papyrus and Exodus that this was not the same. But even though I wasn't able to hear the part where they were saying that it was different, I could tell that they were different because there's different literary voices at work there. And if you read a bunch of different books, you come to realize pretty quickly when an author is actually employing their own voice, or if they've gotten someone else to assist them, or even if they're using a ghostwriter or something like that. It's very, very hard to hide because we are very unique as people in how we present things, and it's very difficult to genuinely ape the style of someone else. If it was really easy, then there would just be loads of people doing that with Stephen King and, other famous authors all the time and just making themselves famous as well. But that's just not something that people can do. People write uniquely in their own ways, and Exodus is very much so written in a way that it has multiple voices. It's not just a monologue that was written by one person.
You are very correct. Very correct. And still, for some strange reason, these scholars still have their faith. They are still professing Christians.
Well, I think that just goes to show that you can still be a Christian and still tell the frickin' truth about what actually happened historically. Like, these people act like it's, oh, we have to lie about this stuff and we have to misconstrue it. Otherwise, people might lose their faith. You know what the fastest way to lose your faith possibly is? Going and putting your faith and all of your trust into people like this that are presenting these videos, doing the research and finding that it's not just wrong, but that it's stunningly wrong in a variety of different play. That's the fastest way to get somebody to lose faith in something.
Exactly. If I need to go get myself something to drink, if I play the video, or do you want to sing meanwhile? Because if I play, you can
come marching in. Oh, when the saints come marching in. Oh, how I'd love to be among them. No, I'm not doing that. What I am going to do, on the other hand, is thank everybody that's currently watching the stream. We definitely appreciate the interaction going on in chat, and we appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. I hope that you guys are watching with an open mind, and I hope that you are listening to the actual content of what we're saying and the criticisms thereof, because this is not just a matter of a slight disagreement. This is not just a mistake that they made that was just innocent in nature. This is a narrative, and it is being propagated at the expense of an actual, truthful, factual analysis of historical events and how they occurred. And that just opens up such a horrible, slippery slope, because the moment you start introducing misinformation into history, it just makes the door swing wide open as far as, well, what else can we get away with? We were able to put past these people that Joseph was somehow Imhotep I. We got away with that because they weren't critical of that. What else can we get away with? And it's for that very reason that I think it's necessary for people like me and Deviant to stand up and say, no, that's not true. That's not accurate. That doesn't have any historical basis behind it whatsoever. Because without that, then they're going to be the only ones dominating that narrative. And it doesn't behoove anybody to believe in something just at the expense of a narrative. They should believe something because it's true. So are you guys going to provide your evidence at the end of this response? I mean, what do you want for evidence, Missing Mod? I mean, what would suffice as evidence for you? Because we're talking about a variety of different things over the course of this video. Like, what are you referring to in terms of evidence?
I'm back.
I'm front. We're both here.
Awesome. You make a full horse.
That's right. That's right. Missing Mod says, are you guys going to provide your evidence at the end of this response? I mean, if I really don't know what she really means by evidence per se.
No. So it's
whoever's funnier. How do we decide who is correct? Well, Missing Mod, the historical, like the scholarship that's actually gone into studying things like the Ipuwer Papyrus show that the age that they're giving it here of the 1200s BC lines up way better than them trying to say, for one, that it was in the 1400s BC, and for another thing, contradicts their narrative earlier that the Exodus didn't take place in the time of Ramses at all. So, I mean, as far as the evidence is concerned for the claims that we're making, I would encourage you to look up the scholarship around these sorts of topics, because it certainly won't err on their side.
Yeah, you could, for example, look into the book by Alan Gardner, which is a translation and a commentary on the entirety of the Ipuwer Papyrus, complete with the hieroglyphic transcription.
We're moderators, so could we put the link to that in the chat so that Missing Mod has a source to like look
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that she actually has something that she can like refer back to. Wait, I have to look into. Yes, Missing Mod. That's when somebody makes a claim and another person makes another claim. It's typically on you to look into both of those claims and verify which one is true. That is true. Yes. Thank you, Deviant. So yeah, the link is there in the chat. Gigi, are you here right now, buddy?
Yeah.
Could you do a favor and could you put the link that Deviant just posted in the chat? Could you put that in the description of this video?
Oh,
so
okay.
that
Awesome.
just so that people don't have to manually type all of that out from the chat.
Could you put it in the private chat? Make it easier.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, Gigi. We appreciate that, buddy.
Yes, very much.
I'd like to also point out that the sources we've cited are now 100% more than what the Proverbs guys have cited in terms of sources. I just want to put that out there.
Yes,
and
but I also have to address that Missing Mod is quite correct to ask for evidence or some sort of backing. It's never wrong to do that. So thank you for shouting it out, and now we can pick put the link to this.
So what's the purpose of this show? LOL. Well, Mod, like I said, we're presenting you with one side of this discussion. They are presenting you with another side of this discussion. And we're just saying that it's up to you as somebody who has now heard both sides to do your own research and come to your conclusions about that, which I think anybody should do with any topic. I don't think that anybody should take anybody at their word. I think that there should, especially when it comes to claims like this, which make up the backbone of some people's entire belief system.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be taken lightly. That should definitely be looked into and researched.
Can I see something?
Absolutely.
Uh, After you guys done, can I show you a video?
Of course.
Sure. I want to go for let's cover to about the 2/3 way mark in this video. So it's 50 minutes long. What's 2/3 of 50? That would be. Oh man. 2/3 of 50.
About 7 minutes more.
Let me just speak really loud so you can't hear me typing into my calculator real quick. Divided by 3. All right, so that's 16 times 2. So that's 33 minutes into the show. I knew that. I knew that. We need to stop at the 33-minute mark.
Which is why I put the cursor at 23:40. 32:40.
Good. Well, let's keep going.
Yeah, it's 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's okay though. We have gone through about 7 minutes so far.
No, it's okay, Phantom. I already knew. From my brain, by the way. I knew that by doing the calculation in my head because I just know everything and I'm the sum total of all human knowledge. Thank you very much, though.
When the plagues of Egypt occurred, or 1447 BC, since the name Ipuwer was common in the 18th dynasty. In my humble and sincere opinion, the Ipuwer papyrus serves as a definitive proof of the existence of the Exodus and the plagues in Egypt, representing a valuable archaeological relic of Egyptology that validates the existence of Moses and the events of the plague.
It does not validate the existence of Moses.
Right.
It does not validate it. That is a jump in logic.
It's not a small one either.
No, it's a huge one. It's a huge one. And this is, again, what I was pointing to earlier. When you take similarities, you can't stretch them out and say, this is exactly like this. Now he has gone from look at these similarities to saying it validates Moses. Where in the Ipuwer papyrus is there mention of Moses? Where is it mentioned? Where are the Israelites in all of this?
Where's the account of the fact that the entire Egyptian army got freaking wiped out by a cataclysmic freaking wave that swallowed them all up?
Yeah, where are the mentioning of Israelites? 600,000 men, which in totality makes about 2 to 24,000. What I was going to say 2,400,000. That's a very real way to say it.
I think it's 2.4 million, DV. When you look, it looks like it's about 24,100,000.
But it's still correct because that makes 2.4 million.
That's right. That's why I said 2.4 million. I've never thought of it that way, but I'm gonna freaking think of it that way from now on.
Awesome. No, but this is the issue with, and I'm sorry to have to say it to those of you in the chat and those who are watching this whenever you do, who are Christians and who hold to. I'm not saying that the Bible is incorrect, or I'm not saying there isn't a God. I'm not saying any of it. What I'm saying is this video that the Proverbs guys are showing here are making extreme leaps in their conclusions. It does not follow logically, and unfortunately it's exactly the type of rhetoric that we see with pseudo archaeology, pseudo history. And as I said before, there are so much better information about this. There is actual scholarship on this that you should look into because it's very interesting. It's very, very fascinating. And it won't take anything away from you. It will only make you more informed.
This is one of the things that kind of frustrates me about the dogmatic aspect of religious belief, because I imagine there are so many people, not just now that live in the current age, but just throughout the totality of Christianity, that would have looked more into these topics and would have dug more deeply into them had it not gone against their dogmatic view of the world. And it just makes me wonder how much more contribution we could have gotten into this field by so many people whose curiosity was artificially stunted by it contradicting this book that they hold so near and dear to themselves. And it's just a tragedy as far as I'm concerned, honestly.
Yeah, and it's all based on fear. If I don't hold to this strict dogmatic view, I'm going to lose my salvation. I'm going to be a heretic. I'm going to be caught in the rapture. No. Since when does looking into facts and bettering your understanding, how and since when is that a bad thing? The truth stands up to scrutiny, and that, I think, is what should be taken from this. The truth stands up to scrutiny.
Deviant, you can't say what someone who is a Christian thinks. Sorry. Well, I mean, like, is that not true? Is there not, just looking at it from a purely social standpoint, is a person not going to be afraid if they're jeopardizing their standing within a community of people? If they go against the norm, if they go against the dogma that that community has established, are they not inculcated through social pressure to toe the line and not to question things?
I also did not say what someone who is a Christian thinks. I said there is fear connected to this dogmatic view. It has nothing to do. You can have a dogmatic view of anything. You don't have to be a Christian. And I'm not telling anyone what they are or how they think.
No, I think it's
like saying, if I say people who are being oppressed are are often in a bad, or are in a bad mental state due to the oppression.
Right.
That's not me saying how they think or how they feel. It's
right.
a general state of how things are.
Well, I mean, even like in a legal context, right? Like, let's say that I am a manager of a business and there's somebody that I know that I want to do a particular thing. You know, let's call this person A. And then we have person B, who I know person A cares very deeply about and values the opinion of. They also work for this company that I'm running. And in order to get person A to do what I want, I decide that I'm going to manipulate person B by maybe giving them a lower paying position, or maybe sticking them in, you know, unideal working environments or conditions, and making it clear to person A that I am doing this because I want person A to do something. That's extortion. Like, that's legally speaking, that is extortion. And when the law says that that person is extorting somebody else, that's not them saying that they know what they're thinking. That's just them saying, look, given the throughput of events and the motivations that are at play, an educated guess can be made of the person's modus operandi and why they did the things that they did. That's not saying that they knew factually what that person was thinking. They're just saying that their actions were consistent beyond a reasonable doubt, leaning towards extortion. That's not them definitively saying, we have the exact transcript of what you were thinking in your head when you made that choice. No, nobody's going to say that. That's a ridiculous claim. Yeah. But there's a difference between making an absolute statement and making an educated guess.
For sure. So she also said, yes, you did.
Later.
Did they tell you they are in fear? I'm not in fear. I'm not saying that you are in fear. I'm saying there is would you disagree with me, Missing Mod, if I said that someone holding an axe over your head and threatening your life and your existence, your eternal existence, is not associated with fear? Is that not a threat? I would guess that you would agree with me. I might have used I might have expressed myself bad before, or in a bad way. But I'm trying to explain to you now what I mean. I hope the message comes through.
I've heard from somebody in the chat that Egyptian writings are 100% accurate. And I find that interesting because the person who wrote that in the chat is also somebody who propagates the narrative that the reason why we don't hear about the Egyptian army being wiped out in Exodus was because the Egyptians, quote unquote, didn't record their losses. So which one is it? Are they 100% accurate in their writings, or did they not record their losses? Which one substantiates your narrative better? Let's continue with the video. I want to get this over with.
Me too. Also, there is kind of a hard stop in 45 minutes because that's when Phantom X show starts. And everyone who is here has to attend, or else.
Yes.
Dun.
But yes, let's try to finish this in under 45 minutes then.
Yes.
In Egypt. I thank everyone who watched the video. May God bless you, and I'll see.
Nope.
All right, so that was video number 1.
So loud.
The comparisons between the Exodus that
Stephen,
Egypt
you don't have to
recorded
yell. You're indoors. The actual recordings that we have, it's like, dude, chill out. Take it down an octave or two. It's okay. I guess he's a student of the school of that video where it's like if you just like artificially pitch the voice up and make it really loud, that like gives it gravitas and makes it important. So you know what? Just keep on doing what you're doing, Stephen. I'm the student at your feet. I should be learning from you right now.
Yes, you really should. I mean, he's the arbiter of truth. The man who never lied. The man who does not sin according to himself. I wonder if Jesus ever said, I never sin.
You know, it's interesting that we don't have a claim has been made that we don't have the evidence. What was it that you posted earlier in the chat? You posted like a direct link to the evidence, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who thinks that we don't have the evidence and that we're just babbling to.
Yeah, never mind the fact that I spent 6 years to attain my degrees. And since then, I have continued these studies. I did not want to say it previously because I don't. There are people who know much more, vastly, infinitely more about this subject than I do. But if we are comparing to the video we were just watching, I would say I am one of the sources. There is also, of course, the book by the great Sir Alan Gardner. But it's kind of hard for me to point to a single source when I draw parallels from all of ancient Egyptian history.
I also love how earlier in the show it was like made out that I'm the only one that's babbling, but now the context is like the mask has fully come off, and now it's both of us that are babbling. It's just the babble show.
Well,
it's just funny how the narrative shifts even in the context of this one video.
Oh, sorry about that.
You should be Gangster Ghost. You should.
No, you shouldn't.
Oh, you got a packed schedule today, Gigi. Right after this, you're doing another show on your channel, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're in high demand. Well, I'd like to think that I helped contribute.
Oh, thank you. Can I show you this video real quick?
No, but can we?
Oh, after this.
Okay.
Yeah, after this.
Right.
Yes.
Of course.
Plagues versus what we see recorded in scriptures. Uncanny, wouldn't you guys say?
It is uncanny unless you look at all the plot holes.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you look at the massive amounts of rubber banding that are taking place. Unless you look at the fact that the book describes camels in a place that didn't have camels at that point in time. Unless you look at the fact that most of the claims are being made by an AI and that the imagery that's being used is woefully inaccurate. Unless you do all of those things, then I guess it does indeed look just uncanny.
Yeah. If you close your eyes and put your fingers in your ears, then everything we just watched and heard in this video they showed is spot on.
Right.
So, yeah, I just got here, so yeah, I did.
Tim.
I liked the quality. The video was good.
You gotta go back and watch it.
Tim. I appreciate that. All that you said was you like the quality. I hope that you're not misconstruing quality for quantity in this case. So something can be have a high production value and still be complete nonsense.
Egypt history is 100% true. I thought it was Egyptian history, but apparently it's Egypt history. Is 100% accurate. I mean, like, Egypt history, quote unquote, comes with like actual archaeological evidence, and it comes with scholarship surrounding that evidence, and comes with corroborating sources from external nations besides Egypt that also talk about the Egyptians and what they did or didn't do. So there's that standard of evidence, and then there's, well, the magic book told me. So I mean, you can decide which standard of evidence you want to use, but that's basically the competition at play here.
Very true. Very true. And it's not just the archaeological history, it's the historical, the written, the historical record, as you mentioned, Aidan. And it's not just what's from Egypt, and it's not what's on the temple walls. As I have mentioned before, the Egyptian records, when we talk about the written record from ancient Egypt, include things like love letters, laundry lists, court records. What's the word? Not scribbles, like tagging.
Yeah.
Klotter på svenska. Yeah.
It's just these people are caught in a web where they have the choice of either actually looking into the information and evaluating the source material for themselves, or just sticking to their dogma and calling everybody who doesn't stick to it a liar. And we've seen both camps of that on display quite well tonight.
I kind of want to cry.
Yeah, I think you can, if you play the video, we won't be able to hear your tears or sobbing.
Yeah.
So.
I'm laughing.
Cry quieter.
Oh, sorry.
Like
yeah, that's more like it.
So and so did this, and then so and so did this, and it compares it to the Bible. Good stuff.
Very good. Yeah.
Well, that was the longest one I have. I got two more. They're a little bit shorter than the first one we just watched. But
oh, mercy.
Definitely, if you missed it, go back and watch it from the beginning. It's worth it. I don't really think I have to show you guys the second and third video. I think if you just go watch the information that Unraveling the Scriptures channel has produced, you'll be blown away.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? Pause.
Then just go fact check it.
I find it funny because a certain somebody in our comments section was like giving us crap because we apparently didn't provide evidence. We just told people to check out the evidence. And his standard of evidence being a YouTube video, he didn't even show the other quote-unquote evidence. He was just like, yeah, that was good enough. You guys can check out the rest on your own time. I guess that was okay, according to that person in the context of what's going on. That's A-okay. But when we actually like directly link what we're talking about and make it available for people, that's bad. That's good to know. That's good to keep in mind.
Yeah. Also, I kind of regret all of the waking hours I spent trying to learn and study actually anything. If I had only known that there were YouTube out there, I mean,
I know, like, why?
What did I do with my life?
Seriously, like, you just waste all this freaking time just so that what? You got a piece of paper that says that you know this stuff? Whatever. I mean, like, just ChatGPT is the only university I need to go to.
If only it had been around back then.
If only it had been around during the 4th century, during all those ecumenical councils, they could have resolved all those disputes right there. Just type it into the chat bot and it'll tell you exactly what you need to know.
If only Moses had ChatGPT, maybe he would have known that there weren't camels.
I think there's a misunderstanding on what dogmatic means, because somebody has made the claim that we are dogmatic. Our beliefs are dogmatic. Really? Yes, no. We're criticizing them for being dogmatic, but in reality, us who hold opinions that have changed due to new evidence coming forward numerous different times over the course of Egyptology and information being revealed that wasn't revealed beforehand. We're dogmatic because... yeah, anyway, let's keep watching the video.
I mean, as an example, I can say, 1 second. I can say as an example, I held for many years that I did not believe that Akhenaten was actually the father of Tutankhamun. I was under the impression that, or the Tutankhamun and Nefertiti, I should say. No, Akhenaten and Nefertiti.
Shout out to Nefertiti, by the way, the original Egyptian girl boss.
Well, that was actually Hatshepsut. Nefertiti was pretty awesome too. She was also.
stupid Egypt having a stupidly long history that I don't know as well as somebody that actually went to school and studied it. Look at me, I'm got a degree in this. Why are you laughing? Oh, she's probably just laughing because she doesn't even know what she's saying. I better unmute my mic so I could tell. Oh shit. Okay. Yes. Yeah, like what Deviant said, guys. Yeah, she's totally right about everything, and I just uncritically believe everything that she says.
As you should. As you should. No, but I used to hold to the belief that Nefertiti and Akhenaten weren't Tutankhamun's full biological parents. I have since then, with new evidence that's come up through the years, changed my view. It's just an example, because that was what popped into my head. And I don't agree with all the scholarship, because that's not how science works. Science isn't built upon agreeing on one source that's never changing. So,
it's just projection. What else is new?
Of course. And I know that, and I understand the issues behind a lot of it. But at the same time, it's very difficult to not try and at least give some sort of commentary, something to. If you don't object to the misinformation, you're spreading it. If you know that it is misinformation, you're spreading it, and that kind of goes against myself, and I don't want to do that. No, all missing mod. Did we miss a gunpowder?
No, it's not that I'm just trying to stay focused. That's all.
Yeah, me too.
Because we have a very narrow window to get this done, and our window's only narrowing, and we keep getting distracted. So it's nothing personal, I promise you.
It's very, very, very true.
Against history, which is what I did, and it blows Egyptology out of the water. And they know that. That's why they hate us. They hate us because they ain't us.
No, and just excellent information that they gave last week and this week, and again, it's just
can you turn that down a little bit?
We have what the Bible sources are, the story, and
blaring into my eardrums.
That's all they do. That is just all
so shrill.
All of history is interpreting facts, just like science, and that's why they get it wrong, because it is just
all of. Hold on.
Wait.
All of history is interpreting facts like science. Was what he.
And that's why they get it wrong. Was that? I have to go.
Yes, I believe that's what he said.
All of
it's
history.
Verbal danneria. It's
that's
hard
all
to
they
follow.
do. That is just all of history is interpreting facts just like science, and that's why they get it wrong, because
you did say that. Yeah. That was the dribble that poured out of his mouth. That is, So let me get this straight. So the science that makes the transistors in your computer, that's not bunk. And the science that allows your car to start up every single day, that's not bunk. And the science that allows your home to be heated through centralized heating, that's not bunk. All of that, that's all good. But when it comes to this one thing, I find it very interesting and very strange that the only things that science seems to get wrong is when they make claims that contradict the magic book. Everything that doesn't contradict the magic book, that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly fine and acceptable, and they reap the rewards of that on a daily basis. But if it contradicts the magic book, just for some reason, it's suddenly just thrown out, and it's bad, and it's bunk. It couldn't be that they're just dogmatically approaching it as wrong because they can't accept that their dogma is wrong. I can't. No.
I mean,
no.
I have to wonder. Does Dan know what facts are? You're interpreting the facts.
Yeah.
And that's why they get. Shall science interpret the lies, the storytelling, the urban legends? It's kind of baffling. I don't really know what to say.
The modern standard of living that people take for granted every day, like going to the washroom and not having to dump their poop in the street, and stubbing your toe and getting an infection and not having to lop off your foot as a result. Like, that's just kind of taken for granted by us nowadays, but believe it or not, there's still people in the world that still have to suffer those things to this day.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not like it's just gone away, but hey, the science that allows all of those things, all those luxuries that make up our lives, that's perfectly fine because, well, that doesn't contradict the magic book. So, hey, the Bible doesn't say anything about the Bible doesn't say anything about the internal combustion engine. You would think that by that logic, evolution wouldn't be a problem because the Bible doesn't say anything for or against evolution either. But hey, I guess you can also artificially come up with problems that the magic book doesn't even address as well. Because if it's just a choose your own facts kind of little adventure book where you got all these different little branches that you can go off on and try to find your own truth, then it's whatever the hell you want.
Very true.
It's just ridiculous to me. I wish that these people would actually be consistent with themselves. If you're going to say that science is bunk and you're going to say that scientists are bunk, then you're basically calling the entirety of the scientific community liars, because every other scientist in the scientific community holds them as perfectly legitimate. They hold their science as a completely legitimate. As a matter of fact, when it comes to things like evolution, there are sciences that rely on evolution in order to function the way that they do, like genetics. And
it's kind of the reason that people like Dan and Steven has food in their stomachs.
Correct.
So it's just a small thing. Not to mention that they can make these videos and watch the videos made by others. But no, the big issue in the world is that we rely on facts to draw our conclusions from. Yeah, that's
because saying Egyptians wouldn't record bad defeat on homeland is right, but they did, question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, never mind all of the defeats that the Egyptians recorded on the account of the Hittites and the Persians and the Romans and the Assyrians and numerous different of the Greeks, like numerous different cultures that have come through and either dealt Egypt a really bloody nose or just outright freaking conquered the place. We have very clear, very comprehensive records of all of that, both from the source of the conquerors as well as sources from the conqueror, from the Egyptians. So they had no problem recording their losses there.
No,
as a matter of fact, the claim that was made earlier in the very video that they just covered was that, well, Egyptian history is perfectly accurate because they put a religious importance on maintaining accuracy historically. So that's all well and good when it comes to serving their narrative, when they're trying to prop up what they're saying is true. Egyptian history is completely reliable, and they even have a religious motive to do that. But when it goes against their accounts, like when they don't mention the slight little fact that their army got wiped out, then all of a sudden it's unreliable. It's just so obviously shifting of goalposts, shifting of narrative. You're just trying to propagate a narrative. It's overwhelmingly obvious. You're not trying to be objective, and you're not trying to use your reasoning equally across all of these different aspects.
You're not being intellectually honest.
No.
At all.
An interpretation of facts.
A biased, yeah.
Yeah, well, they can't give ground on that, you know? If they give ground on the Exodus, then all the rest of the Bible's true.
What?
So
What? What?
So let me get this straight.
But again, this is the exact leaps of logic that were made in the video, which is why I'm not really surprised, but it's still stunning to hear it in action.
Also, it's just nothing but abject projection, because we're not the ones that would have to think that the entire... Like, let's just grant the premise for a moment that everything that the Bible says about Exodus is completely true. There was a real Moses, there was a real Aaron, they were really brothers, and they really did live in Pharaoh's court, and they had a personal relationship with the Pharaoh, and they had a big drama where them and a whole bunch of hundreds of thousands of other people just packed up and left en masse. All of that is just abjectly true in this hypothetical. How does that prove that Jesus Christ existed, that he walked on water, that he turned water into wine, that he rose from the dead 3 days later? It doesn't prove any of that whatsoever. So... no, even in the context of what you just said, granting that massive freaking premise, it still doesn't make sense. It still doesn't hold up to be true. But you know what is true? And this is why I called it projection. Is that if these people looked into the history and realized that the Bible isn't just wrong, but stunningly wrong, historically, when it comes to the recounting of this, well, that kicks open the door for the rest of the Bible for them, because the Bible is supposed to be the inerrant word of God. The Bible is supposed to be a perfect recounting that was divinely inspired and should have no error in it whatsoever in any place. So the moment you find a blemish, the moment you find an error in the inerrant text, that's going to kick open the door to the rest of the book possibly not being true. And that's why me, as well as a large variety of other people, weren't converted to atheism by other atheists. We were converted by reading the freaking Bible and just understanding that the claims that it makes are so abjectly ridiculous that they do not align at all with history, and that they're clearly designed to be a foundation myth for a specific group of people, absent of any actual factual evidence behind it whatsoever. So no, Stephen, you're projecting. It's you whose ideology hinges on this being true, not us.
I mean, I can't think of a single thing that in and of itself would destroy my worldview. Like a single fact that by itself would do that. But I do see I can pick basically any page of the Bible, and if I find one error, then it's not inerrant.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest claims about the Bible that any religious person will make to you, and they will make it no matter how much evidence is shown to the contrary, that it's inerrant for precisely that reason. It has to be in their minds. I'm sorry, go ahead, keep going.
No, I as stated before, my brain is getting quite tired. Also, I've been on here since about 8,
Oh my goodness.
Which doesn't say that much, but it's 1:45 at night now.
We've got about 15 minutes at this point, maybe a little bit more than 15 minutes. So let's keep going.
A bit less, because Gangster Ghost wanted to show a video, and
That's
also
true.
we did promise the
Oh
butterfly
yes,
catcher.
yes we did. Yes, we did. You know what, Dan? You know, he said that the link, like, we just posted a link and expected people to go look at that for themselves. Don't worry, we'll open that link at the end of the show and we'll show you the most important thing in that entire text.
Yes.
But yes, let's keep this video.
You will all be just floored.
And I know that you'll be floored because Deviant Outcast, an Egyptologist, was floored by the discovery that I made.
I was.
Let's keep going.
Yes.
Can't do that. Nothing from Genesis or Exodus can be validated. That's the golden rule of Egyptology.
What?
And it's
What?
all of it, because
nothing can be valid. There was no place called Egypt. What's this place they're naming called?
There was
Egypt?
no Pharaoh.
Yeah.
There were no people.
There's no pyramid. Oh yeah, you would expect us to believe an entire culture was centered around the idea of stacking rocks in a triangular formation? Whatever. Like, what a ridiculous statement to make. It's obviously meant to be hyperbolic, but just like taking it at face value. Obviously, there's several things that the Bible says that are true. There was a place called Egypt, and there's a city called Jerusalem, and there was a guy that wrote about those places. Like, all of that is true. There's things in the Bible that are described in our history, like the census that that Jesus isn't mentioned in conveniently, but Mary and Joseph are. That was talked about in the Bible, and we know that happened. The one that was done by Quirinius, that Phantom thankfully corrected me on earlier, that happened, and the Bible supports that happened. So yeah, there's absolutely things that the Bible gets right historically, but that's the exception, not the rule. The Bible gets most things wrong, but that doesn't mean it gets everything wrong.
Yeah.
So I just like this just goes back to but that position, saying that the Bible doesn't get everything wrong, is more difficult to argue against than just the abjectly irrational position of the Bible isn't right about literally anything. That's a lot easier to argue against. So that's the straw man that's been put up for them to destroy.
Yeah, I dare anyone to find me ever saying that there are absolutely nothing, no single point of claim made in the Bible that's true.
It's like when these people say that I blaspheme and that I do all these horrible things, and every single time that I ask them for actual evidence, they never provide it. They're never going to provide any evidence. They just make the claim, and then they move on without any sources, without any backing. They're experts in that craft. And some people are willing to just accept that at face value, but I would like to think that we're attempting to cultivate a group of people that are a little bit more critical than that.
Yes. Very much so.
All right, let's hear this straw man. Let's hear them destroy the straw man.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, wherever it is through, you know, like, oh well, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that, and then
this and that being basic facts.
Mm-hmm.
Comes up or has stuff
the fact
dug up that agrees with the scripture that has been left out, and they go, oh well, what about that over there? What about that over? And it is just an excuse.
What
was that drivel about things being left out? Go back like 10 seconds. What was that?
You don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that, and then archaeology comes up or has stuff dug up that agrees with the scripture that has been left out, and they go, oh well, what about that over there?
You know what? Pause. What? I know what they're talking. They're talking about Ron Wyatt right there.
Oh,
they're talking about, they're trying to say that Ron Wyatt finding something laying on the ground and claiming that this is the exact thing that the Bible was talking about. They're conflating that with archaeology. So Yeah, I know. It's painful and it's awful and it doesn't make any sense, but look, these people have a narrative to propagate, all right? So shut up, read First Timothy, and be silent while you get taught, woman. I mean, you can play the video if you want, Deviant. Only if you want to, though.
Yeah. Brain fog. Oops.
It is just an excuse, just as Romans 1:20, denying God in any way. This is just a little bit more substantial, physical, human evidence.
It's not denying God. That's the thing. I don't deny God, because in order to deny something, that implies that it's actually true, and then I'm trying to avoid it. I don't think that the God of the Bible exists. There's nothing to deny, because I don't think that they're anything more than a concept in the minds of people that supposedly worship him. Like, that is not the same thing as denying something. But even with that in mind, it's not about God. It's about the claims that the Bible makes that are abjectly historically untrue. Like, you could take God out of the narrative entirely and just show that this mass migration of people out of Egypt that used to be slaves did not occur. You don't have to factor God into that at all whatsoever in order to refute it. But it always has to be about God to these people, because everything that disagrees with the magic book is an inherent attack on the magic man.
Yeah, I have to wonder if there is some sort of idea that no, I can't. I cannot. I am so dang tired of this.
The Bible has been around with people who hate it, trying to disprove what it says for much longer than you, Aiden. It'll never have. Once again, I'm not trying to disprove the Bible as a whole. Like, I'm not trying to say the Bible as a book just gets everything wrong. Once again, that's a false dichotomy. It's not a matter of the Bible either gets everything right or the Bible gets everything wrong. The Bible gets most things wrong historically. I would give it a good 20% accuracy as far as history is speaking. But that still leaves 4 out of 5 historical claims the Bible makes as false and provably so. So there's parts of the Bible that I disagree with. There's parts of the Bible that deserve to be refuted, historically speaking. But that doesn't mean that I'm out for the book as a whole. That's just not true.
No. Can I do make a suggestion?
Yes.
It's 9 minutes to the hour. I think we will be hard pressed to get another 7 minutes of the video
in. No, I think this is probably a good spot to end. It's not quite where we wanted it to be.
Maybe I don't know how long they are talking about this point. Oh, it seems to be quite.
Oh, if it's only a little bit more time, then let's hear what they have to say before they go. I think if we finish their little chat here, that's a good match.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find a place that's fairly natural to leave off.
But that I like that. That feels like better than like in the middle of their discussion.
Yeah. Well, if you gentlemen are prepared, I'm ready to show you video number 2.
Sounds good.
And the first one knocked your socks off. This one.
Yeah, it certainly did, but not for the reason you think it did, Steve.
Exactly. Quite the opposite, in fact.
Right. Yeah. I don't. If you want to believe in magic, that's perfectly fine. But don't go around and ruin the field of history and archaeology in order to try and justify your magic belief. Okay, that's where I do genuinely think that it's the duty of people like us to step in and point out the wrongdoing of that. Because anybody's free to believe whatever the hell they want. But when they start imposing that onto other sciences and other practices and start distorting them in order to justify it better to themselves and to their little community, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I mean, falsifying history, and not falsifying, inventing history and committing these this is going to sound a bit hyperbolic, and it is, but bear with me, because as I said, my brain is very, very tired at this point. Committing the crime of science denialism is actually very, very detrimental, and it opens up, if you can make people believe that what is actually not. And when I say what is, I'm not saying I have the is. I'm talking about, for instance, the facts, as Dan mentioned just a few seconds ago in this video. If you say the facts aren't what they are in fact something completely other, you open, oh my goodness, I am so freaking tired. I can barely make this sentence work.
This is where I drag the cane in and like drag you off stage.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
No, but it's true. I'm profoundly tired. This is very, very mentally draining, and also I have to excuse myself and blame the good old the language barrier.
Oh, okay. So, are you right, Mr. Mod? And it's sorry.
I am.
Deviant mod, missing outcast.
But this is a good stopping point in the video. So
can I show you a video real quick?
Yes.
Yes, you may.
Yes.
And then we need to show them the other thing.
Yes, absolutely. I will stop sharing.
The Great Achilles.
Great Achilles will take over all. Just great Achilles all around me before. Great Achilles, flat earth and can't hold him in PG. Stephen and great Achilles will take over world and beat Aiden, and will take down Antichrist from Greece. And great Achilles will ride the dirt bike to take them all down. All will knee before the great Achilles.
It does it different every time.
Great Achilles will take over. Just great Achilles all.
Achilles.
Me before. Great Stephen and great Achilles will take over world and beat Aiden, and will take down Antichrist from Greece. And great Achilles will ride the dirt bike to take them all down. All me before the great Achilles. Great Achilles will take over. Just great Achilles all will me before. Great Achilles, flat earth and can't hold him in PG. Stephen and great Achilles will take over world and peace. I'll take over world and peace.
We saw of that.
I think that the great Achilles. I don't think we stand a chance against the great Achilles.
Yeah. Oh, we'll kneel before the great Achilles.
I am going to change my name to a clitoris because I'm so sensitive all of the time. A clitoris, that is my new name.
That was quite beautiful.
It was very good.
Oh, thank you. The great Achilles.
The great Achilles. And now, the reveal.
Yes. So first and foremost, before you show this, Deviant sent me the source material that she used for the Ipuwa papyrus, and I was scrolling through it and I was checking out the information, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty neat." There's some like little. It's got actual hieroglyphics here for comparison. And I was going through them and I was making like little silly notions about them lined up in the way that they were. And then I made a discovery. Perhaps the most groundbreaking discovery since the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, I would say.
Could be, yeah.
And that is the fact that the Egyptians in their hieroglyphics have a silly little guy running around with a butterfly net. Show the people, Deviant! Show the people!
Show the people!
There he is!
Here he is. There he is.
And it was great because Deviant at first, like, I was talking about it. I was like, there's a little guy and he's got like a little pickaxe kind of thing was what I said at first. And then she's like, oh, are you talking about the guy with the stick? Because if you look over there to the left, there's a guy with the stick. That's a way more common, like hieroglyphic is the guy holding the stick. But I was like, no, that's not what I'm talking. I promise you, Deviant, there's a little guy that's running around. You know what I think it looks like? It looks like a freaking butterfly net is what I think it looks like.
We also have this guy, which was the one I thought.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Whoops. But no, surely enough, they've got a silly little guy just running around like the joy of a child, as Gangster Coach would say. And Deviant made the very clever analysis. Go ahead and tell them what you decided the image looked like, Deviant.
It's a it's a little boy in his shorts who's running around dancing and trying to catch the owl who's perched on top of the bread loaf.
I mean, I don't blame them. That bread loaf is like this up to that kid's angle. That's a giant bread loaf. That's gonna keep them fed for like a week. You can't take that owl. What the heck?
And then, of course, we have the guy behind here who is like, don't do it. Don't do it.
What did I tell you about not looking both ways for cards? What did I say to you?
So there you have it. This is the truth and the end all and be all of this entire broadcast.
I don't think any of the Proverbs guys are here anymore, but one thing I will ask them, if they do end up coming back, is what do you say about that, Proverbs guys? What about the silly little butterfly net little guy with the shorts? How about that, buddy? He's got his shorts tied backwards, too. You see that knot in the back of his shirt? He's so confident that he doesn't even need to tie it from the front anymore. He can just do it literally without even seeing what's going on. That's confidence right there.
I mean, this is pure childlike joy. He's running around, catching butterflies, dancing, not caring the world.
I want to know what that hieroglyph means. I need you to look into that. I need to know what it means. It has to be something like joyous, right?
So this little guy is uh, denoting it. It's transliterated as an I. In this case, not saying that it's every case. In this case, it's a pronomen. Pronomen. What's the word? Pronomenon.
Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena.
And this little guy, if we go, there he is. He's so happy. Is a determinative. So if I were to make a guess, I would say it's probably in the vicinity of action, which is the same as this guy.
You know how I translate it?
Aha.
I translate it as Christian Pike because he has the joy of a child.
Oh, we can see. Yeah, I have to look in Gardner's sign list for this one.
Yeah.
Because as I said to Aiden prior to the show, every single hieroglyphic on this page as well as the next, I recognize them immediately. That I've seen them hundreds, thousand times before. I do not recognize this guy. So I think he is the actual answer. He's the foretelling, the sign we are looking for.
Well, I want to say to Steven, up your game, because not once in that AI video did it say, we can tell based on the runnings of the little butterfly man that, that this clearly aligns with the book of Exodus. I didn't hear that at any point. So up your game, Steven. You didn't even address the text as it was meant to be addressed. And with that being said, have a good night, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in.
Oh, thank
you. Very good night. Thanks to everyone in the chat and to Aiden, and of course to the ever lovable, wonderful Gangster Ghost.
Oh, thank